that will be known as part 2, which is going to be skin retouching Photoshop. In part 1, remember, we did the color grading and evening out of the skin tones of this very image. And right now in part 2, we are in Photoshop and we want to learn about skin retouching using frequency separation, blemish removal, eye and teeth whitening in Photoshop from the very start to the very end without any step skip. So simply like this video and don't forget to subscribe this channel. So this is the image that we have right now in Photoshop. And the very first thing I tend to do when it comes to editing images in Photoshop is have an intention or the use of the image that I want to edit. So right now this is going to be edited for social media and Instagram to be in specific, and I'm just going to come right here to the crop tool right here, and I'll choose the ratio of 4:5 or 8:10 because when I post this photo on Instagram, it is going to be able to fit into the whole screen. So I'll simply get the crop tool and drag up to crop the image to my liking and simply hit enter. So after cropping the image, I'll simply do the skin retouching. So in order to understand skin retouching using frequency separation, you have to understand that frequency separation divides the image into the high frequency layer and the low frequency layer. In the high frequency layer, we have our textures, and in the low frequency layer, we have our colors. So we want to divide this very image, which is the background image, into the high frequency layer and the low frequency layer. So what we're going to do, we're just going to come to and create those two layers that we want to contain the textures and the colors. And in order to create those two layers, simply select the background layer, hold down, left click and hold down, and simply drag and drop it on the plus icon to create one layer. And you can do it twice to create those two layers, or you can simply press Ctrl J, or you can use Command J on the keyboard. So Ctrl J for Windows and Command J is for Windows. So press Command J twice to create two layers. And with these two layers created, simply double click on the name to name these two low frequency, or some people call it color, and the upper layer is high frequency, and other people tend to call it the texture layer. So I just call it high frequency. And after doing that, we just want to retain information the way it is labeled right here. So the low frequency layer is for colors, the high frequency layer is for textures. So I'm just going to come right here and hide the high frequency layer and select the low frequency layer. So with the low frequency layer selected, we are simply going to come right here to filter. So we're going to come to filter and we're going to come to blur and come down to Gaussian blur. So this is the most important step when it comes to editing using frequency separation, and most people tend to misuse this kind of step. So usually the radius is going to be all the way to 0.1. So when it comes to this step, you have to look for an area that contains more skin textures than the rest of the skin. So you have to move around and you see that area, or you can simply click on a given area to be precise with your selections in this Gaussian blur dialog box right here. So for my case, I'm just going to be using the forehead area as a reference point. So we want to only remain with the colors in this low frequency layer. So just come to the radius and simply left click and hold down and simply drag up the slide up the point when you're just starting to lose out on the textures or the details in the skin in that area. So you have to stop at that point when you're just starting to lose out on the textures in that given area. So just take that up. So at around 6.0 pixels, that is when I'm just starting to lose out on the details. Don't take it all the way up. You simply have to stop at the point when you're just starting to lose out on the textures or the details in the image, but you can still identify the facial structures or the given facial details that were initially there. So 6 is okay for this image, and I'll simply come and press OK. So after doing that, I'm just going to come to the high frequency and select it and come and activate it by clicking on the visibility or the eye icon right here. I'm just going to come right here to image, and I'm just going to come to apply image. So remember, in Photoshop, when you're editing images, we have 2-bit depth of photos. We have 8-bit and 16-bit. So in order to notice or to understand about the bit depth of the image, simply have to come to image and simply come to mode, and you check the bit depth where you have 8 or 16. So, or you can simply come right here to where the image information is, and you can see that we have 16 right here, meaning the image is 16-bit. And if at all you have 8, it will mean that your image is 8-bit. So you have to also understand that. So the source usually is going to be the name of the image, and the layer from which we want to extract our textures is going to be the low frequency layer. So after doing that, make sure the channel is RGB right here. And if at all you're working with an 8-bit image, so if at all you have 8 right here, it means your image is going to be 8-bit. These are settings that you have to do when it comes to this area right here that has blending. So just come right here to blending and simply change it to subtract right here. Opacity at 100%, preserve transparency and mask cannot check. The scale has to be 2 and offset 128. And when you do that, you can notice that we have our textures on this gray layer. Make sure that invert option is not turned on and the preview is also turned on right here. So you can see that this layer is lacking colors and it only has textures. If at all we are to zoom in using Ctrl+ on the keyboard, you can see that we only have textures and outlines, but we are lacking colors, meaning this layer is only containing the textures in this case. That is for an 8-bit image. But if at all you're using a 16-bit image, you have to come and use a blending of add. The scale has to be 2 and offset 0, opacity at 100%, preserve transparency and mask cannot check, and simply come and turn on the invert option, and you'll see the textures on the gray layer like we had for the 8-bit image. So since mine is 16-bit image, I'll simply come and hit OK. Come and change the blend mode from normal and change it all the way to linear light, and you'll get back the image that it was meant to be, meaning this layer is containing only the textures and this one is containing colors, and we're about to prove all that. So just come and select both layers by selecting Ctrl or pressing Ctrl or the command key on the keyboard and pressing Ctrl G, or you can use command G on the keyboard to put these two in a group, or you can simply drag both after selecting them and dropping them in a group icon right there. So we are going to double click to rename that to frequency separation. So if at all we hide the original background image, you can see that we initially have the same image. And if at all we open up this group right here and we hide, for example, the low frequency layer, we only have the textures that are activated. And if at all we hide the textures and activate this, we only have the colors in this layer. But when we combine both by activating both, we only have the whole image that it was meant to be. So what we are going to be doing next, we are going to go into understanding skin retouching. So this step has been basically about how to divide the image into the colors and the textures. And right now we just want to go ahead and do the skin retouching. So usually we have various tools that are going to enable us to do skin retouching. So in order to do skin retouching, usually most of the work is done under unifying the skin tones and having uniform skin tone transitions, and the other part is basically about removing the skin imperfections, pimples, blemishes, and acne. So what we're going to be doing, you're just going to come right here and simply, first of all, create a uniform skin tone transition. By uniform skin tone transition, I'm meaning you can see that in the forehead area we have various skin tones, and we just want to create a harmonious transition between those skin tones. So I'm just going to come and hide the high frequency layer so that we can only deal with the colors that involve or in which the skin tones are embedded. So just come and select the low frequency layer in this case. So in order to unify the skin tones better, we're just going to come and use the mixer brush tool. A mixer brush tool is going to enable us blend the transitions within the skin of the model. So just come under the brushes right here and right click and get the mixer brush tool. And if at all you're using a slightly older version of Photoshop, or if at all your workspace of Photoshop is different from mine, you can find your mixer brush tool below here. So make sure to select the mixer brush tool, and after selecting any tool within Photoshop, always the settings are going to be on this top side. So whichever tool you select right here, the settings for that tool are always going to be on top right here. So I've selected my mixer brush tool, and I have to set it right to get the best and desirable results for skin retouching. So I'm just going to come right here and simply make sure the hardness is set all the way to 0%. And right here I have to make sure the brush is as clean as possible, because as I'm editing skin, I only want the brush to be clean as possible, because I don't want to paint any other color within the skin area. So make sure I select clean brush. And we have two options right here. One is saying load the brush after each and every stroke, and the second one is saying clean the brush after each and every stroke. Meaning, when you're working on the skin tone area, we are dealing with different colors on the skin. So I just want to make sure that Photoshop automatically cleans the brush as I'm working on different areas of the skin. That is why I've selected the option that says clean the brush after each and every stroke. So the weight you're going to be using is 9%, because we don't want the brush to spill colors from one area to another. So I'm just going to be using a weight of 9%, load of 75, mix at 90, flow at 100%, and make sure sample all layers is not checked, because as you're working with the Mr. Brush tool and this is turned on, and if at all you accidentally leave this on and you try painting on the skin area, it is going to sample information and it is going to paint back information in the color area, because you have commanded the brush to sample information from these two layers within the frequency separation group. So if at all you come and paint, you can notice that it's also painting back the textures into the low frequency layer, which we don't want. So always make sure sample all layers is not turned on, and also hide the high frequency layer. So after doing that, we are now done setting up the brush tool. So in order to edit better, always slightly zoom into the image and make sure the brush size is slightly bigger and it is in the size of the area you're trying to work on. So if at all you want to work on the forehead area, make sure the brush is rather slightly within that given area, and simply start painting. So how to mix? Simply move the strokes of the brush according to the way the face is shaped. So the forehead area is moving in this kind of up and down kind of movement. So I can't move my brush in a horizontal kind of direction. I'll just move it in a curved vertical direction to follow and maintain the original shape of the forehead rather. So I just come and left click and hold down. So you left click and hold down if at all using a mouse or a trackpad. And for the pen, you can simply press and hold down and simply mix just like that. So we are basically mixing and blending those colors to have a nice and harmonious transition. And you can see, so you come and mix that area just like that so that it can blend better. So you lift if at all you're trying to move to a given area that is different, and mix that area on where that area or that color is transitioning from one color to another. Mix that area so that you can create a harmonious transition within those colors just like that. And you can see the face is looking somehow plastic as you're doing this, but the more it is looking plastic, the better the results are going to be at the end of this very tutorial. So I'm just going to come and blend just like that, and you can see the colors have now blended quite well. So when we come back and we turn on the texture or high frequency and we turn this on and off, you can see that we have blended the transitions within the skin tone. You can see how the forehead is all uniform, but we have maintained the original textures. So I'm just going to come and turn this off. And when it comes to the cheek area or the cheekbone area, reduce on the size by using the bracket key. The left bracket is going to reduce on the size, and the right one is going to increase on the size. So reduce it and mix, and you can see I'm following the direction all the way that area is shaped to keep and maintain the original shape in that area. So I'm just going to be doing this for the rest of the skin area, and I'll see you later on after forwarding this, because I don't want this to be a very long tutorial. So let me just forward this and I'll see you later on. And one other thing, as you're editing, always make sure you don't zoom all the way in, because when you zoom all the way in, you won't be able to see the uneven skin tone transitions, and you'll end up doing the retouching that won't be looking better and realistic at all. So always make sure you retouch at the distance, and that is going to help you save so much time. And let me just keep on forwarding this. Hello, welcome back, and now you can see I'm done retouching the skin and I've created an even skin tone transition, and you can see this is the before after. You can see how even the skin has gotten to be. And after doing that, you can simply incorporate the second technique, that is refining the areas that you may have missed out when you're trying to use the mixer brush tool. So for this case, I'll just come and simply get my lasso tool and make sure it is in new selection mode right here. And for better or smooth edges for your lasso tool, simply make sure the feathering is around 22 pixels, because whenever I make a selection on this area of the skin, I just want the edges to be smooth and I don't want it to leave lines from the selection. So after doing that, simply with the texture layer still activated or reactivated and is now visible, simply select the low frequency layer. Now just come and make a selection on the skin area. Keep out from the eyebrows and the edges of the face, because that will carry color towards the skin. So after doing that, just come back to filter, blur, and come to Gaussian blur right there. And this is the radius that we had previously for our frequency separation. So one way you can do this to retain skin texture that is perfect, simply drag the radius up to a point when you feel like you're getting a better skin texture in the image. So at around 18, that is when I'll be getting a natural skin texture for the model's face. But alternatively, you can simply come right here and simply use the radius that you had for your frequency separation and multiply that radius by 3 and type in that value. So 6 by 3 is 18. I'll simply delete 6 and type in 18, just like that, and simply hit OK. So to deselect this area, simply click out from the selection. That is going to automatically deselect that selection. And I'll just come and you can see how I'm drawing the shapes of these areas. So I'll just draw that. So just draw that and come back to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, just like that, and hit OK. And if at all the effect is too much for your liking, you can simply apply the Gaussian blur, and simply after applying it, simply right click on the selection, and you can as well fade or reduce the opacity of that Gaussian blur you have applied in that given area. So I'm just going to be doing this. So this step usually I do it for only the face to perfect and have perfect results for the face area. So I think this is okay. And when it comes to the nose area, most people select the whole nose as a whole, and that is a disadvantage, because when you select the whole nose, it's going to eliminate the highlight and it's going to make the nose big. So when it comes to the nose area, simply apply it on the dark side of the nose, one dark side, and apply your Gaussian blur just like that. And don't apply it on the brightest point to maintain the originality of the model's nose and keep that nose intact the way it was meant to be. So this is so far the before, after. So after we have done that, the next thing that we're just going to be doing is removing the pimples and skin imperfections or the blemishes. So blemishes are part of texture. So simply come to the high frequency layer or the texture layer, and now come and select it. And after selecting it, simply come and get our clone stamp tool and make sure the hardness is set to 0. The mode is normal, opacity 100%, flat 100%. Aligned is selected because we want to sample skin in an aligned way. Make sure the sample is set to current layer and not current and below. So make sure the current layer is selected. And now after doing that, use Ctrl plus, or you can use Command plus on the keyboard to zoom all the way in. And after zooming all the way in, we just want to remove the blemishes. So in order to remove a blemishes or pimple from the model's face, what you have to do, simply hold down the Option key on the keyboard. If at all you're using Mac, then if at all you're using Windows, you can hold down the alternate key on the keyboard. So left click and hold down, and as soon as you hold down, simply make sure that the size is slightly bigger than the blemish that you want to remove by using the bracket keys on the keyboard. So hold down the option key or the alternate key on the keyboard and left click on a clean area that is near the blemish to copy that clean area. Release the option key or the alternate key on the keyboard and simply click over the blemish to eliminate it. So let me do this once again. So in order to remove this blemish, I'll make sure that the size of the clone stamp tool is slightly bigger than the blemish that I want to remove, and come to the area that is clean or doesn't have a blemish and is near the blemish. Hold down the option key on the keyboard if you're using Mac. Then for Windows, hold down the alternate key on the keyboard and left click on an area that is near the blemish, and that is going to copy that clean area. Release the alternate key on the keyboard and simply click over the blemish to eliminate it. So I'll just forward this and I'll see you later on in this tutorial. And now you can see that we are done removing the blemishes, and this is the before after for skin retouching and the color grading so far. So anything that we're going to be doing, we're just going to be doing a little bit of color grading and a little bit of eye whitening to this very image. So in order to edit this image better, we are simply going to come to adjustment layer and simply come and create a selective color adjustment layer. And we just want to intensify the blacks by coming to the blacks right here and come in the black section and simply intensify the blacks just like that to have more richer blacks just like that. And if at all the blacks are having any color cast, you can simply play around with these values to see if at all that kind of color cast has been eliminated to have a better and richer black. And after doing that, we're just going to come and create a black and white adjustment layer. Come and change the blend mode from normal to multiply and come to the opacity and simply reduce on the opacity. I just want to increase on the contrast of the skin tone of the model right here. And after we have done this, the next thing that we want to do, we simply want to come and create or add some tiny bit of contrast to the image by coming to the brightness and contrast and adding some tiny bit of contrast to around 7. I think that looks okay. Then we're also going to come to selective color once again and simply play around with the greens to see what shade of green that we prefer or like better. So I'm just going to play around with this green slider to see what works better for me. So I think this makes the greens pop a little bit more, and this looks okay. So I'll put my color grading in a group and press Ctrl G on the keyboard, and you can see this is a before after for just the color grading process in Photoshop. So let's do a little bit of eye whitening. So in order to whiten eyes, you're just going to come right here and create a hue and saturation adjustment layer, and come measure master is selected and simply come the saturation and simply desaturate the image to around negative 77 is okay. And with this selected, the white layer mask selected, press Ctrl I on the keyboard. You can simply press Command I on the keyboard to invert the layer mask and come under the brushes. This time around, get the normal brush tool and simply select hardness of 0% and make sure the soft round brush tool has been selected within Photoshop. And after doing that, make sure you have black and white on these two color swatches, or you can press D for the default to have black and white. So if at all you have black and white right here and you want to switch between black and white, simply use this arrow right here. You can use X on the keyboard. So what we want to do, we want to eliminate these other random colors that are within the eyes of the model using the brush tool. But remember, in Photoshop, white is going to reveal and black is going to hide. So with white on top, meaning the brush is going to be white in color, we want to paint and reveal the whitening effect that was hidden behind this black mask. So what I'll just come and paint in the eyes just like that, and you can see it is going to be eliminating these other random colors within the white area. So you don't have to paint in this corner because naturally this is made to be with that color. So I'm just going to paint just like that to create that kind of whitening effect within the eyes. And if at all the effect is too much, you can simply reduce on the opacity of the whitening. So right now we are done doing the skin retouching and color grading for this very image, and this is what we have been able to achieve within Photoshop. If at all I hold down the alternate key or the option key on the keyboard, you can say before, after, before, after, before, after. So this is how you can easily do skin retouching in Photoshop and also color grade for those that watch the color grading tutorial within Capture. And this is it for this video. And if at all you have enjoyed this, simply like this video and don't forget to keep practicing, and don't forget to subscribe and also keep creating. If at all you have learned something new and you have benefited, don't forget to practice it if at all you want to be perfect at what you do. Ronix from Ronix Photograph, and I'll see you in yet more videos on this channel. And don't forget to practice more to become a perfect photographer, and I'll see you soon.